The effects of the famine were long-lasting and disastrous, and it is believed that during this time, many would perish. Such a possibility was still very much true for Jacob, who, having set up his residence in the land of Canaan, commanded his sons to once again return to Egypt, so that they could acquire more food. Judah, however, was much less enthused about returning to Egypt a second time. After all, their brother Simeon had already been taken hostage by the Egyptians, and the Lord there, who, unbeknownst to Judah, was his brother Joseph, had told him that the only way he would see his face again was if they brought with them their youngest brother, Benjamin. Now, this was a bit tricky because Jacob was not only immensely fond of Benjamin, but Benjamin was also the last son he had left who was born to him by his true love Rebekah. In a way, you might say that Benjamin was the last remnant he had of the woman he loved, and he was not about to risk him for anything, even if it was the only way to free his imprisoned son Simeon, who was born to him by Rebekah's sister, Leah. Additionally, it might be said that after the disappearance of Joseph, the older brother of Benjamin, and the previous favourite of Jacob, that Jacob wasn't that trusting of the sons of Leah, for he was suspicious that they had something to do with the disappearance. Yet still, Judah attempts to plead with his father to send Benjamin to Egypt along with them, saying, "If you will send our brother along with us, we will go down and buy food for you. But if you will not send him, we will not go down, because the man said to us, 'You will not see my face again unless your brother is with you.'" Now, Jacob gets frustrated with Judah, asking him, why did they have to tell this man that they had a brother at all? Surely, if he had just kept his mouth shut, then the man would never have asked to see him, Simeon would never have been imprisoned, and there would have been no need to worry about acquiring food from Egypt. But the brothers are quick to point out their innocence here, saying, "The man questioned us closely about ourselves and our family. 'Is your father still living?' he asked us. 'Do you have any other brothers?' We simply answered his questions. How were we to know that he would say, 'Bring your brother down here'?" After this, Judah assumes the role of leader once again, and essentially tells Jacob that if he doesn't send Benjamin down to Egypt with him, then all of them will die. With this, he guarantees Benjamin's safety and allows Jacob to hold him personally responsible if anything was to go wrong. "If I do not bring him back to you and set him here before you, I will bear the blame before you all my life." What we see here is a bit of a turn for Judah in terms of his character. Previously, he had been the instigator in the beating and selling of Joseph into slavery. He had also become embroiled in the scandal with Tamar, where he had neglected his widowed daughter-in-law and denied her remarriage to his remaining son. Now, it would seem that Judah was attempting to do the right thing, whether to atone for his past mistakes or to save his imprisoned brother Simeon. Perhaps the reason is not important, for Judah's selfless actions here not only achieve his intentions, but they also see to it that Jacob and the rest of the family will acquire food. Judah takes on the weight of the responsibility here, as well as the weight of Benjamin's safety, and effectively becomes a more heroic character than perhaps he had ever intended to be. To this, Jacob concedes and advises Judah that if this must be done, then he should take with him the best products of the land and offer them to the man in Egypt as a gift. He instructs Judah to take with him double the amount of silver, so as to compensate the man for the payment that had been placed back into their sacks the last time they were in Egypt. Perhaps this can be seen as another feature of Judah's newfound goodness, that he was willing to return to Egypt for the sake of his brother and his father, knowing full well that the Lord of Egypt had every right to then treat them as thieves when they got there. Perhaps it was a mistake, Jacob states, in regards to the silver, understanding the possibility that maybe the Egyptians had meant to put their payment elsewhere, but ended up placing it back into the brothers' bags. Of course, we know that Joseph had instructed the Egyptians to do this very thing, so as to not only determine the brothers' honesty, but also ensure that they and his father back home had more than enough to see themselves through the famine. With that, Jacob gives Judah his blessing and sends him and his brothers, including his beloved Benjamin, down to Egypt. "If I am bereaved, I am bereaved," he states, suggesting a certain acquiescence to his situation, and perhaps a relinquishing of his control of the situation to his God. So the brothers took the gifts, double the amount of silver, and Benjamin also. They hurried down to Egypt and presented themselves in front of Joseph once more. When Joseph saw the youngest brother Benjamin with them, he told the steward of the house to slaughter the animal and prepare a meal, for which they would all eat together in his home. Now the brothers were fearful of this gesture, for though it was kind, it was also somewhat suspicious. Why was the lord of Egypt taking so much of an interest in them that he would go to such lengths to have a dinner prepared for them? Why was he inviting them to his home, if not to kill them in silence? Perhaps their father Jacob had been right all along. They thought to themselves, "We were brought here because of the silver that was put back into our sacks the first time. He wants to attack us and overpower us and seize us as slaves and take our donkeys." With these concerns, they went to the entrance of the Lord's house and told him the truth of what had happened. They told him that when they had first come to buy food, they had brought with them silver as payment. However, after they had left, and when they had stopped for the night, they each found the very same silver in each of their sacks. With this realization, they declared that they had brought back the silver with them, and more silver on top of that, so that they might buy more food. At last, they emphasized that they did not know who put the original silver back into their sacks, and that deception was not of their intentions. To this, Joseph was relatively relaxed, and he told the brothers not to be afraid, because there was no misunderstanding. In fact, he tells them that he did receive the silver that they had originally brought him, and that the silver that they had found in their sacks must have been given to them by their God. With this, Joseph thinks no more on the matter, and presents the brothers with the hostage Simeon. After this reunion, the steward took the men into Joseph's house and gave them water to wash their feet, and provided nourishment for their donkeys. The brothers presented Joseph with the gifts that they had brought with them, and once again, they bowed before Joseph. Once more, a throwback to Joseph's vision, that his brothers would bow before him. He asked them how they were, how their father was, and whether he was still alive. "Your servant, our father, is still alive and well," they replied, and they bowed down, prostrating themselves before him again. As Joseph looked at the brothers, his eyes soon fell upon his brother Benjamin, his only full brother, and a boy, no, a young man now, who he'd not seen since they were children. "Is this your youngest brother, the one you told me about?" Joseph asked his brothers, and he said, "God be gracious to you, my son." So moved was Joseph at the sight of Benjamin that he hurried out of the room and went to his private quarters, where he wept. Some might say that Joseph wept out of longing, for Benjamin was the embodiment of both his mother Rebekah and his father Jacob, two people that Joseph had not seen in many a year, and whom he missed greatly. Others might say that the reason for Joseph's tears were because he missed his only full brother growing up. He had not been able to protect him, much is the older brother's responsibility. After he had washed his face, he returned, controlling himself, and had the servants serve up the food. They served him by himself, the brothers by themselves, and the Egyptians, who ate by themselves, because Egyptians could not eat with Hebrews, for that is detestable to Egyptians. Here we see that Joseph did not eat with his brothers because of the social divide that was prominent during this time of Egypt. The Egyptians were of the notion that they were descended from the gods, whilst all other nationalities were not. With that in mind, it was not considered right that such a mixing of races should be so commonplace. What's interesting here is that despite Joseph's influence and power, he himself was not even allowed to sit with the real Egyptians, and because of this, had to sit and eat by himself. The brothers had been seated before him in order of their ages, from the firstborn to the youngest, and they looked at each other in astonishment. Why? Well, it was quite surprising that the Egyptians had managed to seat all 11 brothers according to their ages, for they could not have possibly known how old they were just by looking at them. Of course, we know that Joseph had likely orchestrated this, as the one man there who would have known their ages. Yet to the brothers, this seating arrangement was miraculous. When the portions of food were served to them, Benjamin's portion was 5 times as much as anyone else's. This was yet another test by Joseph to see how the brothers would react to seeing that Benjamin, the youngest, was given a larger portion than anyone else. Remember, the brothers had resented the fact that their father Jacob had favoured Joseph. Perhaps then, Joseph was trying to see if those lingering feelings of jealousy were still a part of the brothers today, and whether they would treat Benjamin any differently because of it. Were there signs that the brothers would throw Benjamin into a hole and sell him off into slavery, just as they had done to him? Or had they changed? It remained to be seen, but at least for now, it would seem that the latter was true, for the brothers feasted and drank freely together for the first time in decades. As always guys, if you've enjoyed today's episode on Biblical Stories Explained, then don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more content just like this. Until next time.